Hi, Sybil. Hope everybody's having a great week. A couple of updates from here. So last week I couldn't do an update because I was in Washington, D.C. at National Science Foundation reviewing some grants, and that was really useful. It was pretty tiring because we had to go through 60 grants in about a day and a half, and so we were just locked in a room. Um, Two people read each grant and then used their own impressions plus the impressions of some outside reviewers to decide whether grants would get funded and how they would get scored, like ranked. It's a really good process to see because we had applied in the last cycle and not gotten funding, but gotten close. And so it was good to be able to see how those decisions are made and get to know the people who are making the decisions. And it was actually really useful because I think I had, when we didn't get funding last time, it was already a revision. So we'd already applied once before that. I was in kind of the mentality of, I don't know, it's really hard to get funding if you didn't get it twice in a row. If you made the revisions, they suggested they still didn't like it. But after doing it, I realized that actually we were quite close to funding and we were deemed competitive, which means that if there had been enough money, we would have gotten funding. So anyway, so it made me a little bit more hopeful for the possibility of getting funding in the next round, even if we don't make really large changes to it. And maybe it's better not to make really large changes. So anyway, that was a really useful experience. And I also talked to another person at NSF, another program officer who has funded us in the past to do the gender and STEM work. And so I talked to her about when the next grant cycle, what kinds of things they're looking for. So we also have the possibility of applying for that grant later. It's not a summer deadline; it's a fall deadline. So anyway, so it was very useful information. And then this week I'm giving a talk. I'm going down to Santa Barbara and giving a talk at their psychology department. I've never been there before, so I've been to Santa Barbara but never to UCSB, so I'm excited to see what that's like and get to know their faculty. And then on Monday I'm giving another talk in the demography department. So I'm doing one race talk on Friday where I'll be presenting some of Linda's work and then some of our older work that has to do with race. And then on Monday I'll be doing our gender and STEM review paper. Which I've presented a million times now, but they keep asking me to present it some more. So this is a new audience. There's going to be no psychologists there, actually. It's all like sociologists and economists. So that should be interesting. And then on Wednesday, I go to Berkeley and I'm giving the same race talk again at Berkeley. So it's kind of my week of talks right now. So anyway, I hope everybody has a great meeting. I think you're doing industry and academia today, and I actually have experience with both. So I worked in industry at a consulting company. It was a PricewaterhouseCoopers, which was actually an accounting company, but had a consulting wing that I think they no longer have because all the accounting companies got in trouble for doing that in the early 2000s. But back then, in the late 90s, they still had consulting wings. So I did 2 years of management consulting there, and then also worked at Adobe when I was a grad student. So I have all that industry experience, and then obviously I have experience in academia. So I think both are really good choices. And I think for me, going into industry was helpful. I learned a lot of skills, but it also taught me that long term, I like to ask my own research questions and kind of work for myself, and that I don't think I would have been as engaged in my work in industry as I am in academics. But the downside of that is that I'm so engaged that it's hard to sometimes like disengage, like when you want to. So you kind of have to know yourself. I don't mind not disengaging. I don't mind working on vacation and working on my weekends and things like that. And then, I can take the opportunity to make my own schedule during the week and do what I like to do during the week because I can kind of create my own schedule. But for me, academics is definitely a good choice, but I think trying both is also useful too if you're undecided, because I think it's hard to know what you like until you try it. So anyway, I hope you have a great meeting. I'm happy to talk further about my experience in business if at some point when I get back, if anybody has questions. But I'm sure you'll hear lots of interesting insights into people's jobs and what they do. So I will talk to you all soon. Bye.